Welcome to Cut to the Chase, where we talk about compelling legal, regulatory, and public interest information and news. Your host is Gregg Goldfarb, an attorney, entrepreneur, investor, and activist.
All right, folks, it's time for our favorite podcast, Cut to the Chase, and that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. I'm introducing Sharon Tasman. How are you doing today, Sharon?
I am doing great, Gregg. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you for asking. That's my favorite response now to that. But in any event, Sharon has been a business and healthcare technology attorney for 30 years. A lot of my shows are mass tort-oriented, injuries, and all that. But today I'm going to talk to the entrepreneur, and I'm going to tell you as an entrepreneur, whether you're female or male, you're a startup, you're big, you're small, Sharon can help you out. She's been with one of the biggest law firms. And I think, you know, when you started with Hogan Levels, they weren't that big, but they got enormous over the years.
Yeah. So when I started with Hogan Levels, there were 10 offices around the world and 400 attorneys global. When I left, there were 2,500 attorneys and 47 offices global.
Wow. Wow. So
yes, it got quite big.
Quite big. And I see that when you were with them, you did some enormous contracts, 200 million. A total of $6 billion worth of contracts. You were dealing with some big clientele. And in that world, you know, it can kind of be pretty, I don't even know the right word, not generic, but not personal. And now you started HTBiz Law, which is, you know, basically you're providing accessible legal resources to entrepreneurs, startups. Did I get that right?
Well, not just startups. I also, on the more health and technology side, I do work with larger companies, you know, in the 50 to 100 million range, but nothing like what I was doing at Hogan Levels. And I loved being at Hogan Levels, but one of the reasons I started my own practice is I wanted to be able to provide, as you said, legal resources to companies that couldn't afford the rates of a Hogan Levels, where now my rate would be $1,000, $1,200 an hour, which is great if it's, you know, you're building a nuclear power plant. But you hit the nail on the head in that as Hogan got bigger, the types of clients got bigger, and your involvement became more of a strategic missile. And I think that I provide the most value when I'm able to get to know a client, get to know their business, and be with them for the long term, not just come in, do a deal, and leave. Because then when you work with somebody for a while, and that's what I was able to do at the beginning of my practice, even with bigger clients, was be with them for years for some of them. So you can see everything, you can train them, head things off at the pass, and in the end, save them a lot of legal bills by helping them from the beginning. And that's what I want to do. And that's what I'm really focused on, especially the last 4 years. I've really been focused on helping solos, small businesses, get started, grow right, people who are making the leap from employee to employer. It is a big change to go from working for someone else to becoming the boss, because there are a lot of things to think about that you may not realize all of a sudden all falls on you.
All right. So now I know it's the end of the year, beginning of the year. So this is a good time to have some of the discussions that we're going to have. I want to just kind of touch on some of the topics that I anticipate us going over, but, you know, my show is not completely scripted, so things, you know, can go one way or another. But one of the things that I want to talk about are, it's the new year. You want to prep your business for the new year. Number two, you're a female and you're thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, or you have that spirit, but you're afraid. So I want to talk about the issues that you might encounter in that genre and how to overcome it. We're going to be talking about why you're an entrepreneur. You invented the internet. No, I did. No, you did. Oh my God, who invented it? Who owns it? All right. So now it's like, all right, I got this great idea, but I don't have any money. I'm not hiring a lawyer. I'll just do it myself. I don't care. But don't be a fool, because you might give away the shop before you even realize it. So we're going to talk on some of the basics, best practices out there, and why you need to hire this lady, Sharon Tasman. And one of the things that I loved on your website is you have the legal strategy session, that 1 hour. Listen, a lot of you know that I don't want to get this big, long arrangement with an attorney. I just need this one single discrete item dealt with, and it's going to take me an hour. And nobody ever does that as an attorney, but she does. Sharon does. So we can talk a little bit about that as well. Copyright, intellectual property, how to protect your content, because you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be producing content. And we're also, one of my favorite little topics now is artificial intelligence in the world of copyright. Hey, you're chat GPTing it. Is it yours? Is it not? We're going to get to that also. All right. So Sharon, let's start with, give me the 5 things that keep you up at night in terms of what entrepreneurs are faced with in 2024.
Okay, so
it doesn't have to be 5, but more or less.
Well, it might be about 5. So the first thing is, if you have started or are starting a business, male, female, no matter what age you are, no matter what type of business you're in, you must set yourself up as a legally recognized entity, whether that's an LLC or a corporation, and you should not ever just do business under your own name. And the reason is, if you're just doing business under your own name, often called a trade name, you have no separation between you as a person and you as a business in the eyes of the law. So if your business gets in trouble, all of your personal assets are at stake. Your house, your car, your savings, everything that you've worked so hard to build up, which is putting you in the position to be able to start a business, can all be lost. And it is not hard or expensive to set yourself up as an LLC, which stands for Limited Liability Company, which is what I think is the ultimate in best value for somewhere between $100 and $300 to set yourself up that way. So that's issue number 1. And I can go into that in more detail, but yes, for the top 5. So I would say that. I would say making sure that you carefully mark and protect your copyright information, things that you have developed that you use to perform services if you're a service provider, for example, tools, techniques, macros, code banks, all those things that you have created, you need to make sure they don't walk out the door. So you want to make sure that you have copyright notices on them, confidentiality notices if they're confidential, and that you make sure that when you do a pitch to a client, you do it in a way that they can't just take your work. And also, once you know everything you have, then you can figure out if you actually should be charging more, which brings us to number 3. And this is especially, unfortunately, applicable to women. I see over and over how often people are undervaluing the services they provide. They don't think about all of the tools and techniques that they have created potentially over years in the value they're bringing to their new clients. And they're not reflecting that, they're not capturing that, whether they do flat fee or hourly rate or in the price of a product. So by figuring out all the intellectual property that you own, not only do you know what you own so you can protect it, you know what you own so you can get paid what you're worth. And that's the third thing, is making sure you're charging enough. Because when you become an entrepreneur, you think, oh, I've made $5,000 this month. But what you forget is that's $5,000 in gross revenue. That's before taxes come out, before business expenses, before the cost of software that you use, the cost of potential any business travel, before any savings. And I mean, that's a whole other topic. You cannot get back the value of time when it comes to investing. So even if it's $100, you should be investing every month. But people think about the gross revenues. They forget that what they're actually going to have to spend personally is probably 50% less by the time you take out taxes, business expenses, all of that. And also, people tend to overestimate their revenue and underestimate their expenses. What I tell people is, whatever you think your expenses are going to be, double them. And whatever you think your revenue is going to be, knock it down at least by 25%. Then take your taxes out. Then take your expenses out. So you want to capture money where you can. $100 difference an hour in a rate for a reasonable sized client may not be much, but to you, if you're a small business, that's a significant difference in the course of 100 hours in a month. That's a $10,000 difference in revenue. So making sure that you feel comfortable charging what you're worth. And that's something I see with women. I had a client who came to me who was losing money because she was volunteering her time because she felt she should. She was volunteering 90% and getting paid for 10.
Yeah.
And it should be the other way around.
Yeah. That's very nice of her, but
it's very nice, but she'd been doing this for years. She sold her house to be able to keep doing this. And it's a lot of mindset work as well. You deserve to be paid for what you do. The next thing ties to making sure what you own doesn't walk out the door. If you are working with somebody else, whether it's hiring somebody else or having a partner, you have to make sure that you have a written agreement that captures intellectual property rights and makes it clear who gets to do what with what at the end of the day. Because copyright law covers reports, drawings, computer software, and the copyright rights sit with the person who created them, not with the person who paid for them. So if you have a business, Greg, and a friend of yours writes some software for you and you do it on a handshake and you say, can you write this code? I'll pay you $10,000. They write the code, you pay them $10,000. You then realize it's a very valuable potential product. You go to market the product and they're going to come back with their hand out going, I'd like 50% of the profits, please. And you're going to go, why? And they're going to say, because I own everything I did for you, not you. And they would be right. So under copyright law, if your partner or your virtual assistant doesn't assign everything to you, you own nothing. They own it all. And, my current assistant, my tech support person who does some computer coding for me was a little shocked when I presented him with a 5-page independent contractor agreement. Because, large type font, not tiny, I don't do tiny type font, but just because they were my technical assistant, they're writing funnels for me. They're doing back-end integrations. I need to own all that. They're creating content for me, like tiles. Like I'll give them the specifications. They might create a post tile for me. I need to own it, not them at the end of the day. So yes, I walk the walk. I don't just talk the talk. And the fifth thing, if I had to come up with the fifth thing, is in the most important. You want to make sure that your internet presence doesn't get you into more trouble than it brings you benefits, which means you need an appropriate terms of use and a privacy policy on your website. The terms of use ensures that your visitors to your website know what they are allowed to do with any content that you have, and it protects your content. It limits your liability. The privacy policy lets them know how you are going to use any data that you collect. And one thing I see that horrifies me over and over is I understand that people download things from the internet and they'll go to a site, whether it's CNN, Disney, any major corporation, and they'll see a beautiful privacy policy or beautiful terms of use, and they'll copy it. And maybe they'll change the name, and sometimes I've even seen when they don't, and they'll put it on their website. And they've done two things when they've done that. One, they've committed copyright infringement because that belongs to the other website. And two, I guarantee you they are breaching the privacy policy the second they put it up on the web, because privacy policies matter, because people don't realize how much privacy laws can affect them. They'll think, I'm just sitting in Oklahoma. I don't have business in Europe. But if your website is targeting people globally and you are reaching residents of Europe who are using your site, the European General Data Protection regulations will apply to you if you have their personal data. So if you say that you do one thing because you borrowed somebody else's privacy policy and you're doing another, that's the fastest way to get into trouble, because your privacy policy must align with what you actually do. So those are the 5 things. Set yourself up as a legal entity. Know what your contracts are. Your copyright and confidential information is, so that you can protect it and get paid what you're worth. Make sure you have appropriate terms of use privacy policies and that you have good contracts not only for your people that work for you, but also with the clients, so you don't get trapped in endless reperformance of services.
Okay, so let's go to the first one, because I think you with the LLC and all that, I think some people have misconceptions about, oh, LLC, S Corp. I mean, am I both? How do people think this through in terms of what they should be? I know you want them to get the LLC, but what's the difference between LLC and S Corp? I think a lot of people are like completely baffled by the fact that there's two things that they could be.
An LLC is the basic legal entity. You can elect to be taxed as an S Corp, but it's something that you only want to do when you have steady income, because if you choose to be taxed as an S Corp or form as an S Corp, you have to pay yourself as payroll, regular salary. As an LLC, it's profits. You can flex how you pay yourself. So until you have stable, regular income, it does not make sense to go to the level of becoming an S Corp, because then you also have to deal with corporate taxes and separate corporate tax filings. An LLC, limited liability company, is recognized by every state in the United States and the District of Columbia. You form it under a state. It can be the state in which you reside, which for most people is the correct state where they physically operate their business, or they can file, another common state is Delaware. But if you're just a small business, file in the state you're in. You can file for an LLC for a filing fee of somewhere between $100 and $300 on the state corporate office website for your state. I'm actually putting together a resource of the current links to all 50, it's not ready yet, but all 50 LLC states. But you can just search for name of state, government, corporate office. Make sure that you click through to a website that has the .gov ending, so you know it's truly the state and not someone pretending to be the state who'll charge you lots of money. You'll look for LLC formation. You just search on that site. And the filing fee is typically $100 to $300. And it's maybe a 2-screen long form that's purely facts. Your name, the name of the company, the address of the company, the business of the company, when you're starting business, and a few other purely factual questions. You file that, you pay the filing fee, and in 1 to 3 weeks, you'll typically get approval that you are now a LLC, limited liability company. So long as you operate as an LLC, you operate your business as a business, and I'll explain what I mean by that. That LLC will shield your personal assets. By having an LLC, you divide you as a person from you as a business. The other things to operate as a business, you want to get a federal EIN number. You go to irs.gov and apply for an EIN, employer identification number. Even if you're not going to have employees, it's free. Get the EIN, write it down, save it. They don't send it to you a second time. It's really silly, but you better print it out and save it because they don't send it back to you. You want to have a separate business checking account. You want to have a separate business credit card. You want to make sure that you treat your business like a business. Don't use it as a piggy bank. Don't charge personal business expenses to your personal account. Don't charge personal expenses to your business account. You want to demonstrate to the public that you really are operating as a business. When you go to open a bank account for your business, the bank will ask for sure, a copy of that certificate of formation. It could also be called articles of formation. It depends on the state. They may also ask for something called your LLC operating agreement. That's the next step. That typically is a lawyer drafted document. And what it does is it sets up the rules of the road for your business. It gives you the ability to decide how much you'll make as your initial contribution, how you're going to pay yourself, whether or not you're going to allow future members in the business. It also sets up something important, which is it's not all wine and roses situation. everyone should have a succession plan if you're a business owner. At some point, you might get sick. Unfortunately, you might pass on. You need to lay out how you want the business to wound down. Do you want it to be passed to a spouse? Do you want it to be dissolved? Do you want it to go to a partner if you have one? All of that is set up in the LLC operating agreement. A lot of times people go, but oh, that will never happen, or I don't really need a contract for something. But unfortunately, a lot of times we're drafting to protect against the bad things that can happen. Because when things are all going great, you don't think about the contract. It's only when things aren't going well. But setting up as a business is so important, because if you are in business, you are driving to a business appointment. You hit somebody while driving to a business appointment. Your business is going to be liable for that. Your business can insure you. Your business can indemnify you. If you don't have a true business, you're just operating under your own name. If you, for example, hit somebody while driving to a business appointment, you personally are going to be liable, not the business. If somebody gets hurt by your product, if you don't have a separate business, you personally will become liable. And that's what we want to avoid. My ear pods, I apologize, keep wanting to fall out of my ears today.
All
so
right.
I think,
Go ahead.
So I think it's really, really important that everyone sets up as a business. And for the few $100s that it costs, we're talking about potentially saving you tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
All right, now we're going to segue into sort of a related topic, which is, all right, it's the beginning of the year. You've got your business up and running. Maybe it's your second year. You haven't even really thought about, hey, it's the new year, but you suggest to, businesses that they have like a beginning of the year checkup and review of the system. So give me the basics of that. What should businesses be thinking about at the beginning of the year?
Well, typically I would say in December for the first one, but January, February, it's fine. You should think about your pricing. Are in fact you pricing your products or services appropriately? Did you make changes last year? Did you include new benefits in a service that you already offer? Did you release an updated version of a product or enhanced version of the product? Let's figure out how to get more money into the business doing exactly what you're already doing. So sit down and have a conversation with yourself. Did I increase the value of what I'm doing? Then let's change the prices appropriately. So you want to make sure that you're bringing in the appropriate value. You also want to make sure you have everything set up the way it should be. Do you have your terms of use and privacy policy on your website? You want to make sure that you have one. It would almost be better to have none than to have one that you borrowed from somebody else, but have an appropriate one on your website. It doesn't have to be the fanciest, but it needs to be drafted for you, specifically for what you do. You want to make sure that if you have anybody working for you, or if anybody has done any work for you in the past that wasn't under a contract, that you get that resolved. If you've got somebody working for you now that doesn't have a contract, but they've been working for you for 6 months, do the contract now with an effective as of date of the day before they started. That covers an assignment of all of the things they've done for you to the business going back to when they started. If they no longer work for you, you still can get that information, which can sound really lawyer. It's called a nunc-pro-tunc assignment. Basically, it's retroactive. We can pay $10, $100 to somebody who did work for you in the past in exchange for them assigning all of the things they did for you. And the key is you want to do it and clear all this up sooner rather than later, because the bigger you get, the more valuable your products or services become, the more well-known they become, the more it's going to cost you either now to get that assignment or later if an investor comes and they do the digging, and they will do the digging. And I know this because for 10 years when I was at Hogan Levels, I worked for VCs where I was the person who would go in and dig and make sure that all of the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed, so that if there was anything created by somebody not at the company, it was covered. And we dig until we find it. So if you're going to get big enough that you have something worth investing in, they will find any of the gaps. So fix it at the beginning of the year. And you also want to make sure that your agreements with your clients protect you. Do you have agreements with your clients, or are you always signing what a client puts in front of you? Because I guarantee you that whatever a client puts in front of you isn't in your favor, it's in their favor. And it may, in fact, say they own everything, which could, in fact, inadvertently take all of the IP that you've already created and shift it to them.
All right, I want to shift over now to female entrepreneurship. I can't, for some reason, can never pronounce that word. One program that I'm watching, great fascination, is the Martha Stewart story on CNN. And you know, it was kind of interesting because at the beginning, when she first started to get famous and wealthy or whatever, they pointed out how few really, really successful women entrepreneurs there were out there. And I know that, you know, I'm sure that there are a lot more now, but there's still the same hurdles, I would imagine, for a woman who says, you know what, I'm tired of working for the man. And I got so many good ideas.
Literally, in most cases,
and I don't want to be held back, but I'm afraid. And I know there's still sexism, and I don't want to be subjected to that. And I don't want to change the world and all that. But you know, you're a female entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
You've lived it. And, you know, so what let's talk about what you see out there that women typically encounter, and what do you recommend on how they should deal with it? Whether it's just in the head or whether it's really out there.
So the first thing I would say is that we sometimes hold ourselves back as women. Studies have shown that whether it's applying for a promotion or raising rates or asking a client for work, men will apply, go for the promotion, go for the job, ask for the work if they're only 50 to 70% qualified, usually in the 50 to 60% range. Women wait till they're 80 to 90% qualified. So part of it is, if you're going to be your own boss, you have to learn to be the boss. I'm not saying BA rhymes with witch, but you have to build the confidence in yourself that you know what you're talking about, and that you know your business, and that you provide good services, and make sure that you in fact are charging what you're worth. It is, between my female clients and my male clients, it's much harder for women to raise their rates. They feel that they can't, they shouldn't. Society conditions them to play nice. They don't want to question an agreement, a contract that the client, you know, their potential client presents, because they're afraid that they'll lose the business. And my answer to that is, a bad contract is worse than no client. Because, and I have had to let clients go because the clients would change my work and then get upset with me if it didn't do what they wanted. I'm like, well, you changed the work. But when it comes to, for example, any type of services provider, whether you're a web designer, business consultant, you're going to have a contract typically prepared by a client unless you have your own. And as a small business, it is always better to have your own, because you can walk out of the pitch meeting and then send your template quickly to the other side. And as a woman, I think it's even more important, because if you have professional looking contracts, if you are handling yourself professionally, you get non-disclosure agreements before you send your confidential information. You have a well-drafted client agreement. You have a professionally done website. It is sad but true that we have to be just a little bit better. But when you present yourselves as that professional, it elevates you in the eyes of clients. Clients know what's good and bad contracts if they are any sort of decent size. They're not going to be shocked at a contract that says the client doesn't get to own the consultant's pre-existing work, because that's the nature of being a consultant. You get the benefit of what was done before, but you don't get to own it. It would drive the client out of, the consultant out of business. And I have seen contracts where statements of work or descriptions of what you're going to do were drafted so loosely in favor of the client. They would say things like, the consultant will perform work until the client is satisfied. How does the consultant know when they're done? Where the consultant was trapped doing twice as much free reperformance of services than the actual value of the contract, because the client just took advantage of that and said, no, I want it this way. No, I want it that way. So, but having your own template protects you, and it presents that more professional image, which can help give you the confidence to say, I'm worth this. I think another thing women especially, have to deal with is the perception that as a woman, if you have kids, if you're a wife, if you're a mom, that business isn't your main goal, that you're just doing this as a side hustle. And again, you need to be able to present yourself professional. I think one of the first hires small businesses should make, especially women, is invest in a workspace where you can work without interruption, so that you can focus on what you're doing and not be wife, mom, spouse, caretaker.
All right. So I think you started a Facebook group this year.
I did.
And so talk about that. I mean, because
so it's called Age is an Asset.
Yeah.
I am over 40. I've been a lawyer for 30 years. So even if I only started at 10, I would be over 40. And I was a little bit older than 10. I mean, I wasn't quite that much of a prodigy. Started as a programmer, actually. But I wanted to provide a space for women who either have made the leap to starting their own businesses or are about to make the leap to starting their own businesses, and particularly women 40 and up, because we do face different issues than 20 somethings and 30 somethings. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but especially for 20 somethings, and there's a lot of resources for them. They don't have the assets to worry about, to protect. They aren't both taking care of children and sometimes taking care of parents. So it's a space where we address legal issues, tips on how to start businesses, grow your business, and also to deal with life as it comes. Of all the businesses started by women, 62% are actually started by women over 40.
Yeah.
So having a resource for that is useful. And inside the group, we're doing it as a Facebook group for now. Inside the group, and it's free to join, we do exclusive content. I present live every other week. There's a topic of the month. So as we go through an entire year, we run through basically all of the sort of life cycle steps that you need to take as you're setting up a business. We cover business foundations, what you need for an LLC, how to figure out what you own so you can get paid what you're worth, how to deal with clients, how to deal with employees, how to make sure your website is appropriate, what kind of hires you might need to help have the support to build your business. So I'm passionate about that because I am that. And in fact, I started my business when I was over 40. So I've been doing this for 10 years, and there are ups and downs. You know, there are days when you go, do I want to work for somebody else again? And the answer is no, I don't. But there are days, I mean, I'm going to be perfectly honest. And one of my personal mottos is life is too short for BS. So I pretty much tell it like it is, and I'm an open book. So whatever people want to know, I'll tell them what it's like.
All right. The name of that group is Inside.
Age is an Asset.
Age is an Asset. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can I join? Just,
nope.
No, I can't. Oh boy, that's terrible.
No, it really is. And it's nothing against most men.
Yeah.
But we all hear about what happens when often women post things on social media that a subset of men find not to their liking. And they will take over comments, they will be rude.
Yeah.
And that is not what I want. There are plenty of groups for men.
Yeah.
This is specifically for women over 40 or close to 40 who are starting or want to start a business and want community and practical business and legal tips at the same time.
I mean, I was just kidding, but I mean, I know. That actually, I'm sure that there would be plenty of good nuggets for me, and just as in the business world. But I have a feeling
that if you follow,
I have a feeling that this Facebook
if you follow the business law page, HTBiz Law, that is for everybody. That isn't just for women or men. That is for everybody. And content is available for everybody on my Facebook page, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, on the website HTBiz Law. So only the one Facebook group is just for women, and there is exclusive content in there, but we do provide lots of useful information, videos, blogs, both written and video form. And you can see me on podcasts.
I'll send my sister to that Facebook page. All right. So I wanted the last topic before we end the show, copyright. Okay.
Yes.
Content. You were mentioning content. In the early days, I used to think, oh, copyright, it's not that big a deal. I'm not writing a book. I'm not writing a song. Who cares? But now, like, content, and people don't have the basics. So give us a couple of minutes of the basics from, do you have to put that C? How do you put that C on there? How do you preserve? When should you be realizing that you have a copyrightable material? And then the last part of this segment, I want to talk about the dreaded Chat GPT. And I'm sitting here on my Chat GPT creating all this content. Is that copyrightable? Where are we on that? But let's start with the basics, and then we'll end with that, and that'll bring this big show to an end.
Okay, so copyright law covers works of authorship, reports, drawings, computer software, artwork, music, literary works, algorithms, macros. Copyright is the right that vests in the author or belongs to the author of the work. It must have human input, human creation, which will come up again when we talk about ChatGPT at the end. And the copyright rights instantly spring into existence the moment that work is created. They vest automatically in the author, and they belong to the author unless the author expressly licenses or assigns, which means to give, the rights to somebody else, or it's created by an employee in the scope of their employment, in which case, by operation of law, the copyright belongs to their employer. But if you're an independent contractor, if it's your company, if you're just an individual person, you own every piece of social media content that you create immediately. And you don't have to do anything else. You are the copyright owner. And the moment you create it, you can put that little C in a circle on the, at the bottom. And the form is C in a circle, the year, your name or your business name, period. That's all you have to do. The reason I say to put that on, you don't have to put it on. You own the copyright even if you don't. But it is free to do that. And if you do that, nobody can claim they didn't know it belonged to you. And that's where you get into something called intent or willfulness. If you have that notice and somebody steals your content, if you go to court, you can show that their theft was almost always deemed willful because they knew it wasn't theirs to begin with. They've seen that it was yours. And this is something really big for people who spend a lot of time in social media, because it is rampant where people are literally re-recording somebody's video saying exactly the same thing somebody said, and then just passing it off as their own. So I, in fact, have a copyright notice that pops up on the screen at the end of every video I do. It's always there. Copyright, the year, HTBiz Law, period.
Nice.
So nobody can claim they didn't steal it. And also, if I need to do a takedown notice or reach out to one of the, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn, to say somebody's stealing my content, I can say, look, and I always put a copyright notice on it, so they knew it was wrong. When it comes to good practices, if you just have a post, you don't need to go to the next step of doing what's called federal copyright registration. If, however, you've written an entire book, you've written really great app or really great software that's going to be of value, you want to take one extra step, which is to apply for federal copyright registration. It costs $55. you can go to www.copyright.gov. You do not need a lawyer. I'm happy to show you how to do it. You don't need one. If you apply for federal copyright registration, you can get something called statutory damages, meaning under the statute. The copyright damages range from $500 to $30,000 per copy that somebody makes. And here's where that little copyright notice matters, if you can show that it was willful or intentional, it can go up to 100,000 or more per copy. So if somebody downloads your software 100 times and you had a copyright notice on it, 100 times 100,000 is
a lot.
$10 million. So to put that notice on, it's free. And I tell people every page, every footer, every time. Because in the past, people would only put one copyright notice in the front of a book because nobody was literally ripping a book apart.
Yeah.
But now that so much is digital, it's very easy to take a screenshot of something or a page of something apart out of a PDF. So I have a roadmap that I give away. It's the Legal Essentials roadmap, the 6 must-haves to protect your business. Every single page, tiny little type, got my copyright notice.
Yeah.
So that's free. It's free to put the copyright notice on, and it just will protect you that much better. When it comes to ChatGPT and all the AI bots that are out there, and we're going to pick on ChatGPT at the moment. No offense to ChatGPT. Right now, so admittedly, the law is changing rapidly when it comes to AI because we've had a, basically, being lawyer language, a paradigm shift, right? We're in a whole new world now that there is AI out there and publicly available, free or cheap, depending on which AI tool you use. For now, the copyright laws still hold that there must be human creation. It is not enough just to write the prompt, because what ChatGPT or the other AI bots spit out, it might spit out for 6 other people. So in order to get copyright protection in something that was created using AI, focus on the created with the help of AI, not created solely by AI. If it's something created solely by AI and you have done nothing to change it, alter it, modify it, you cannot get a copyright in it for now. That may change, but for now, the rule is still copyrights must involve human creation. So use ChatGPT to help you write the outline for your book, but then write the book yourself. Don't have them write the whole book. Use the outline. Don't write the book. Or ChatGPT can give you ideas for topics for social media posts, or maybe it can do an outline of social media posts, but you need to do some creation. So revise them, edit them, modify them, improve them, be a human being. Because as a lawyer, we pay attention to these things. ChatGPT doesn't always get it right. So trust but verify. Don't take everything that ChatGPT says as facts to be true. More than one lawyer now has gotten into trouble for turning in legal briefs that included citations to cases created by an AI bot that did not exist. And there was one case where the lawyer got censured by the court and paid a fine. He actually asked the AI tool, are these real cases? And they gave him cites to actual pages in, I mean, you'll understand this, like the Federal Register or different state case reports. They were all made up. He did not check. So it's another reason to, in fact, not wholly rely on AI, beside the fact that you won't own the copyright if you do, it may not be right.
I never thought that hallucinations would take place in a law brief, but obviously they can. And I think, I'm just going to tell you from my perspective, if I create something with ChatGPT, this is not advice to anybody, but if I create something through the use of ChatGPT and I make a couple little changes and and, add on this, add on that, maybe move things around. And I think it's a brilliant piece of content. I'm going to slap the copyright thing on.
Yes.
From my perspective, what's the worst that happens? So maybe I would scare somebody away from not using it. Maybe it really wasn't copyrightable, but I think that just putting that on there is going to keep a lot of people from challenging it. And, and I guess maybe if they want to file a lawsuit, and try to get that, answered by the court, I'll go there at that point.
But you did just, in fact, say you didn't take only exactly what ChatGPT put out.
Yeah.
You modified it, revised it, changed some things around. So you did, in fact, put original creativity into it.
Yeah.
It's not like you said, all I did was just slap my name on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day,
but yes, put the copyright notice on it anyway.
Yeah,
exactly. For all the reasons you said.
Courts are going to have to determine what rises to the level of transformation. I mean, if I just move a sentence here or there, little changes, I don't think are going to do it. I think there's going to be some standard they'd set, but we'll wait to see what happens with that. I think it will happen because I think it's going to be a big issue. All right, but I think that's going to do it. I mean, this is a lot of information. A lot of my guests, they come on, they give me information. It sounds exciting, interesting, and all this. This is one of those shows where I'm going to be making notes of some things that I'm going to implement from the show. So Sharon Tasman, thank you very much for coming on. You're an amazing person. I know you have some personal stories I was going to share with the audience and how you overcame them. We'll have to do that on another episode. HTBiz Law, I'm going to drop all your information. There's an amazing amount of information. And she does this 1 hour session in case you're like, wow, I don't want to hire an attorney and have to pay them bundles of money and, just, doing nonsense or whatever. But I appreciate you coming on the show, Sharon.
Thank you. And I apologize. My iPods were uncooperative today.
I know, but you came through. All right. So that'll do it for this episode of Cut to the Chase. You know what to do. Subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any questions that you would like me to ask Sharon the next time I bring her on the show, you can go to my YouTube channel, make comments or whatever, and we'll take it from there.
And I am happy to come back.
All right.
That's all for this episode of Cut to the Chase. But before you go, will you open up your podcast app and give us a 5-star review? You can also leave a comment about what you liked most or other topics you'd like us to cover. And please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming shows. Thanks, everybody. Be safe out there.